In the heart of a city steeped in darkness and decay, the streets were alive with the sounds of chaos. Shadows danced against the flickering streetlights, casting grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe and pulse with a life of their own. It was a night like no other, one that would be forever etched into the annals of horror. As the wind howled through the alleyways, a figure emerged, clad in tattered leather and armed with a gleaming chainsaw. Jack the Reckoner Harlow had arrived. "Time to put these freaks back where they belong," he muttered to himself, revving the chainsaw with a roar that echoed through the night. He was no stranger to the horrors that lurked in the shadows, having fought many battles against the unholy and the damned. But tonight, the stakes were higher than ever. Whispers of Mukil residential Limati, the ancient demon of vengeance and decay, had spread like wildfire among the desperate and the damned. Possessed by the insatiable hunger for destruction, his minions roamed the city, mutating the innocent into grotesque, bloodthirsty creatures. Jack's gut twisted at the thought. He had seen the aftermath of Mukil's wrath, and it was a sight that could chill even the bravest of souls. "Let's see what you've got," Jack taunted into the night, fully aware that the darkness was alive with eyes, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. As if answering his challenge, a low growl reverberated through the alley. From the shadows, a creature emerged, its body a mass of twisted limbs and pulsating flesh, remnants of its former self barely recognizable. It bore the markings of Mukil's corruption, its eyes burning with an unnatural light. "Another one of your failed experiments, Mukil?" Jack shouted, positioning his chainsaw. "You should know by now, I'm not the type to back down." The creature lunged at him, jaws snapping and claws slashing. Jack ducked, rolling to the side and revving his chainsaw. The sound of the roaring blade filled him with a rush of adrenaline. He sprang to his feet just in time to bring the chainsaw down upon the creature's shoulder, slicing through flesh and sinew with a satisfying crunch. "Not so tough now, are you?" Jack grinned, eyes gleaming with the thrill of the fight. But the creature didn't go down easily. It howled, thrashing and twisting in an attempt to shake off the pain. Jack sidestepped its wild flail, feeling the rush of air as claws grazed his skin. "Get off me, you ugly sack of—" Before he could finish, the creature lashed out again, its claws scraping against the metal of the chainsaw. Jack gritted his teeth, pivoting and thrusting the saw deeper into its shoulder. The creature gurgled, eyes rolling back as it finally succumbed to the wound. "Now, where's the real challenge?" Jack panted, wiping sweat from his brow as he surveyed the carnage around him. Blood pooled on the ground, soaking into the cracked pavement, a grotesque testament to the battle that had just taken place. He could feel the presence of more creatures lurking nearby, their eyes like tiny stars in the dark. He turned the corner, stepping into a wider street where the flickering neon lights of an abandoned diner cast eerie shadows. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, mixing with the acrid smell of burnt flesh. "This is the place," Jack thought, recalling the legends about the demon's stronghold. Just as he began to formulate a plan, a shrill scream pierced the night. It was a woman, her voice filled with terror. "Help! Someone help me!" The plea echoed through the desolate street. Without hesitation, Jack dashed toward the sound, chainsaw at the ready. He burst into the diner, a dilapidated building with shattered windows and peeling wallpaper. Inside, he found the woman cornered by 3 mutated creatures, each more horrific than the last. Their skin was mottled and stretched, eyes wide and frenzied, driven mad by the influence of Mukil residential Limati. "Get away from her!" Jack shouted, revving his chainsaw. The sound reverberated through the diner, drawing the creature's attention. They turned, snarling and hissing, their grotesque mouths dripping with a viscous slime. "Jack! Over here," the woman cried, her voice trembling. "Hang tight," he replied, charging forward. As he lunged at the nearest creature, it leaped at him, jaws snapping. Jack ducked, rolling under its massive form and slicing through its legs. The creature fell with a sickening thud, screeching in pain. "Just you and me now, ugly," Jack taunted, turning to face the other two. They lunged at him simultaneously, claws slashing through the air. Jack sidestepped, spinning the chainsaw with precision and delivering a deadly strike to one creature's side. It collapsed, shrieking as it bled out onto the diner floor. "Not so tough when it's just you two, huh?" Jack shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The remaining creature, enraged and desperate, charged at him. With a swift motion, Jack brought the chainsaw down, cleaving the creature in half. The two halves fell to the ground with a wet thud, leaving a gory mess splattered across the walls. Jack turned to the woman, who was shaking in fear. "Are you all right?" he asked, trying to mask the chaos that had just unfolded. "I think so," she stammered, eyes wide with terror. "Thank you. But we need to get out of here. More of them are coming." Jack nodded, glancing toward the door as he heard the distant howls of more creatures echoing in the night. "We have to move fast. Stick close to me." As they sprinted out of the diner, the city outside felt alive, as if it were breathing with malevolence. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision, whispering secrets that sent chills down his spine. The streets were littered with the remnants of Mukil's wrath, bodies twisted beyond recognition, blood staining the pavement. "What the hell is happening here?" the woman gasped, struggling to keep pace with Jack. "It's Mukil Residential Limati," he replied, glancing over his shoulder. "He's unleashed his minions on this city. We have to find a way to stop him before it's too late." "Stop him? How?" she asked, breathless. "I'm not sure yet, but I have a few ideas." Jack could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had fought many monsters in his time, but Mukil was something else entirely. The ancient demon thrived on fear, feeding off the chaos and destruction left in his wake. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed from an alleyway, and Jack froze. "Get back," he shouted, pulling the woman behind him as a massive, twisted form burst forth. It was a creature unlike any he had faced before, its body a grotesque blend of human and demon, oozing malice from every pore. "Jack, we can't," she cried, eyes wide with terror. "Trust me," he barked, revving the chainsaw. He charged forward, ducking under a swing of the creature's claw. With a swift motion, he brought the blade to bear, slicing through the creature's abdomen. It howled, a sound that echoed through the night, but did not fall. "You're tougher than the rest, aren't you?" Jack spat, struggling to keep his footing as the creature lashed out. Its claws grazed his side, and he winced, feeling the burn of a deep cut. "Jack," the woman screamed, panic rising in her voice. "Stay back," he shouted, swinging the chainsaw again, this time aiming for the creature's neck. He struck true, severing its head from its body. The creature fell, twitching and gurgling, before finally going still. Jack panted heavily, his heart racing. "We have to keep moving." "Where do we go?" the woman asked, her voice trembling. "We need to find the source of Mukil's power," Jack replied, wiping the sweat from his brow. "There's a temple on the outskirts of the city, a place rumored to hold ancient artifacts capable of sealing him away." "Then let's hurry," she urged, her determination rekindled. They pressed onward, navigating the twisted streets, their surroundings growing increasingly chaotic. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling under the weight of Mukil's influence. As they reached the outskirts of the city, the air became thick with an oppressive energy, a foreboding reminder of the evil they were up against. In the distance, the temple loomed, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. "There it is!" Jack shouted, pointing. "We need to get inside." As they approached, the ground trembled beneath them, and from the shadows emerged a horde of mutated creatures, their eyes filled with fury. "Jack," the woman cried, fear gripping her heart. "Stay close," he ordered, revving his chainsaw. The creatures charged, a cacophony of growls and snarls filling the air. As Jack charged forward, Mukil retaliated with a burst of dark energy, but Jack was ready. He dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast that scorched the ground where he had been standing. "Jack, watch out," the woman shouted, her eyes wide with fear as she struggled to keep up with the pace of the battle. "I got this!" Jack roared, the chainsaw roaring in defiance as he aimed for Mukil's legs, hoping to bring the beast down. He swung, the teeth of the blade biting into flesh, but Mukil laughed, shaking off the blow as if it were nothing. Foolish mortal! Mukil sneered, the flames of his eyes flickering ominously. You think you can harm a god? Jack gritted his teeth, the anger surging through him. You're not a god. You're just a monster hiding in the shadows. Then let us see how you fare against the darkness. Mukil thundered, summoning more of his minions, their grotesque forms pouring into the temple like a wave of nightmares. Jack, we need a plan, the woman yelled, swinging her pipe to fend off the nearest creature. Keep them back! Jack shouted, focusing on Mukil. He could feel the weight of the demon's gaze upon him, a pressure that threatened to crush his spirit. But he refused to give in. We need to reach the altar. That's where the artifact is. They fought their way through the chaos, Jack's chainsaw roaring and the woman's pipe smashing against skulls. With every swing, Jack could feel his strength waning, but the thought of victory kept him going. As they reached the altar, a brilliant light radiated from within, illuminating the dark temple. There! That's it! Jack pointed, but Mukil was hot on their heels, his rage palpable. You think you can use that against me? Mukil bellowed, his voice echoing ominously. Not if we can't get to it, the woman replied, glancing back nervously. Jack, we need to hurry. They reached the altar just as Mukil lunged forward, his claws outstretched. No! Jack shouted, pushing the woman behind him. He swung the chainsaw with all his might, the blade slicing through the air and catching Mukil across the chest. The demon staggered back, momentarily stunned, but Jack knew it wouldn't last long. Get the artifact, he yelled to the woman. I'm trying, she shouted, reaching for the glowing object atop the altar. But Mukil was recovering quickly, and Jack could see the fury building in his eyes. Get it now! Jack screamed, swinging the chainsaw to keep Mukil at bay. The blade whirled, cutting through the air as Jack faced the dark entity. You're not taking us down! With a final burst of strength, the woman grasped the artifact, its light pulsating in her hands. Jack, I have it, she cried, her voice filled with relief. Now use it, he commanded, desperation creeping into his tone as Mukil charged once more. The woman lifted the artifact high, the light spilling out and illuminating the entire temple. By the power of the ancients, I command you, she shouted, her voice strong and unwavering. Mukil froze, the light washing over him, and for a moment, it seemed like he would be banished back into the shadows. No! This cannot be, he howled, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. Jack, help me, she cried, straining against the power of the artifact as Mukil fought back against the light. Jack rushed to her side, gripping her arm tightly. Together, he urged, determination blazing in his eyes. They focused on the light, channeling their combined will into the artifact. With a blinding flash, the energy surged forth, enveloping Mukil in a radiant glow. The demon roared, thrashing against the onslaught, but the light was relentless, seeping into his very being. Feel the power of the light! Jack shouted, his heart racing as they pushed forward. By the ancients, I command you to return to the shadows, the woman cried, her voice filled with authority. Mukil writhed in agony, the shadows around him dissipating as the light consumed him. No! This cannot be, he screamed, and with one final, anguished roar, he was engulfed in brilliance, disappearing into nothingness. Silence fell over the temple, the light gradually fading as Jack and the woman collapsed to the ground, breathless and shaken. We did it, she panted, disbelief washing over her. Jack looked around, the remnants of the battle scattered across the temple floor. Yeah, we did, he breathed, a sense of relief flooding through him. But even as they celebrated their victory, a lingering doubt crept into Jack's mind. Is he really gone? He wondered aloud. The woman met his gaze, concern etched on her features. I don't know, but we can't stay here. We need to leave before anything else happens. Right, Jack agreed, pushing himself to his feet. Let's get out of here. They moved cautiously, glancing back at the altar one last time. The artifact now lay still, its glow dimmed but not extinguished. What will we do with it? The woman asked, worry in her voice. For now, we'll keep it safe, Jack replied, determination setting in. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. They exited the temple, the dawn breaking on the horizon. The world outside was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just endured. What now? The woman asked, looking at Jack with uncertainty. Jack took a deep breath, the weight of the night still heavy on his shoulders. Now we find a way to make sure this doesn't happen again. Mukil might be gone, but there are always more threats lurking in the dark. Agreed, she nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. We're in this together, right? Always, Jack replied, a sense of camaraderie blossoming between them. As they walked toward the rising sun, the weight of their ordeal began to lift. They had faced darkness and emerged victorious, but they knew the fight was far from over. Together, they would be ready for whatever came next.